Okay, good morning, curd nerds, or g'day, curd nerds. Hopefully the stream's working okay. I had a few technical issues before the show started, but looks like there's lots of people here on the chat, so that's fantastic. We'll say a couple of shout outs and g'days. Well, g'day, first of all, to MJ, who was the very first person waiting about 10 minutes before the show started. Rabbit Slayer, Joy. We've also got Kep. How are you? Who else? Oh, I think they're the early birds anyway. So let's get on with the show, shall we? Well, g'day, curd nerds. G'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Well, g'day, curd nerds. Welcome back. This is Ask the Cheeseman, where you can ask all your home cheese making questions and I will attempt to answer them. I've had a pretty good track record. There's only one or two that I haven't been able to answer. Anyway, so we've got a few more that have joined. We've got Juan and Mickey D. G'day, Mick. Lovely to see you online. Just a few things before we start. Ben, my son, and I spent the weekend at VidCon learning about all things about YouTube and videos and all that sort of stuff. I can honestly say that I didn't learn very much because we're quite advanced on our cheese making channel, and we seem to have, I just really wanted it for confirmation to see that we were traveling in the right direction, which we are, bringing all this lovely cheesy content to you, ladies and gentlemen. Next, I've just got a quick shout out to all of our patrons, the ones that have joined this month. So shout out to Sarah. Hello, Sarah. Thank you for your patronage. Hello to Phineas. Hello and welcome to the Patriots. And one last one, I think Aaron. I didn't mention you last time. Thanks, Aaron, for your patriotism. Or your patronage. That's the word I'm looking for. Your patronage. Anyway, so enough of that. And one last shout out. I got a lovely email from Sister Mary Catherine from the Dominican nuns over in New Jersey. She sent me a lovely email saying that she makes or starting to make cheese in the nunnery there, and all the other nuns love the cheese. So truly blessed are the cheesemakers. But yeah, I'll be answering if Sister Mary Catherine is watching, then I will be answering your email later on today when I get a chance. But anyway, fantastic. So on with the question. Oh, before I start, don't forget that during the show, if you've got burning questions that you want to go to the top of the queue because I'm slow as a wet week, then don't forget you can do a super chat, little $sign down there on the chat box, little as I think it's $1 US or something like that, and it goes straight up the top. All proceeds go to our channel. So moving right along, let's get into the questions. First question is from, let's have a look. Looks like it's from Mick. So Mick says, my first question is, tap water okay for washing curds? Yeah, so what I do, Mick, is I boil it first and basically let it come back down in temperature. That way, at least a little bit of the chlorines come out of it, and I don't have too many troubles. So you would have seen some of the wash curd cheeses that I've made. Well, the most recent one was the Port Salut, so that seemed to work okay. So thanks for your question. Next one is from Fatal Hero Master. Cool name. Is there any cheese that can cure crippling depression? I would say all cheese. That's not a medical opinion, but yeah, when I get a little bit down in the dumps, I go and get some cheese and I feel much, much better. Anyway, so I don't know about that. have you ever tried making a Swedish priest cheese? Not sure about that one, Tony. So don't know. A couple of shout outs, one to Tammy, one to John. Yeah, good. Yeah, you're right. Just like chocolate, all good cheese. Rabbit Slayer, thank you very much for the donation. Kindly appreciate it. Now, Kep has asked a question or a statement. I believe cheese making is based on cultures, milk, temperature, time, and pH. I would like to start using a pH meter. Is there a good recipe book to use for correct pH? Kep, there actually is. Let me just dig it up out of my library. Oh, there we go. So this book here, Mastering Artisan Cheese Making by Giannis Caldwell, is quite a good book, and it goes into a lot of technical detail. I don't actually have any for sale, but you can pick them up on Amazon. I'll put an Amazon link in there or what have you. But yeah, very good book, very technical. If you want the technical sort of stuff for cheese making, which kind of goes above and beyond home cheese making. But it does mention stages of pH and all that sort of stuff in some of the recipes. So good book if you want to pick it up. Like I said, it's Mastering Artisan Cheese Making by Giannis Caldwell. So yeah, not a bad book. I hope that answers your question, Kep. Rabbit Slayer says, because I enjoy your broadcast. Well, thank you very much. Stephen says, how much dollars do you want for the Cheesey Chair of Wisdom? It is not for sale. The Cheesey Chair of Wisdom is one of my wife's favourite chairs when she pops in to visit me in my little office. So, yeah, Kim would be devastated if I sold the Cherry Cheese of Wisdom. Okay, Mick says, I'm starting my first brie today using kefir as a starter. Any tips? No, not really. I've got some kefir grains in the fridge, but I haven't used them yet, Mick, so I'm not an expert on using kefir as a starter culture. I do know that you put them in as the milk has been warmed up, and basically once after you've added the rennet, the kefir grains actually rise to the top and sit on top of the curdled curds and whey. So pretty easy to fish out again. So that's pretty cool. But best of luck, because I haven't mastered brie yet either. I am going to make some. Now, who we've got here? Yes, Mick, MJ, hit the like button. Give it a thumbs up. If not, I don't mind. Did you hear about the cheese that failed to get a medal at the Olympics? It fell at the final curdle. Oh, my God. Righto. Lovely joke. And Ben, good morning, Ben. How are you? Mick, now, he says he's using David Ash's book on brie and using raw farm milk. Well done. I'm glad you could get some. It is difficult to get your hands on, but hopefully it's a reliable source of milk, Mick, and you shouldn't have too many problems. Now, I don't have my regular coffee here this morning because I've got to go for my 6-monthly blood test. Just one of those checkups you get when you get over 50. So anyway, no coffee today, just water until I've had this bloody thing. Anyway, Brendan, hello Brendan, welcome. The parmesan I made last week is suffering from chloroform blown. First time I've had chloroform blown. I'm an obsessive sterile, so I can only assume it was the milk. Have you ever had chloroform blowing? Yeah, and it was actually in parmesan too, Brendan. And I did trace it down to the milk. It blew up like a balloon. It was incredible, and it happened over the course of must have only been 2 weeks or something like that in the cheese cave. I couldn't believe from when I made it. And basically, what I did, I let it mature to to about 6 months, and then I used it basically as a grating cheese. It didn't taste bad. There was no real issue with the cheese, but I have been told since that time that you really shouldn't keep any chloroform blown cheeses. They puff up and they're hollow inside, basically, so you really do know you've got an infection there. It's a bit of a worry. It seems like you always wear that sweater. Only because it's cold. I've got two of these. I've got an indigo colour and I've got this grey one, but they're just nice and comfy to pop on. I suppose I can see why Mr. Rogers now enjoyed wearing them when he got home from work. 3. No, I thought I had 2, Kim. Mick says, you also use also using a whey salted brine. Are you okay with this for Goudas? Oh, sorry. You okay with this for Goudas I made yesterday? Yes, Mick. No problems using a salted whey. It actually helps balance the pH and the calcium transfer between the brine and the cheese. So that's why a lot of cheese makers do use leftover whey as their brine. Just add the salt and get it up to the right level. Do make sure though that you check the pH and get it down to about 5.3, so there's no calcium ion transfer between the cheese and the liquid. Otherwise, it'll make the cheese go slimy, and that's the main cause of slimy cheese when it comes out of the brine. Okay. Mary Ann has said, I'm hoping to get some advice on using fresh goat's milk to use in cow's milk recipes, and also which of the hard cheese moulds would you suggest to start with? Okay, so yes, I do have some advice on you. Fresh goat's milk. Now, let me make sure I get this right. You use 10% less rennet. Or was it 10% more? Hang on, the other way around. Yeah, use 10% more rennet. 1 minute. 1 minute. I have to go consult my library again. Goodness me, now I'm using all the books today. So this one's 200 easy homemade cheese recipes, and I do have some guidance here. I have forgotten, my brain is going to mush, where it talks about converting goat's milk cheeses to cow's milk recipes. Just 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves. Does say it in here somewhere. Here we go. So just reading aloud. Sorry, hopefully no copyright here. Goat's milk has a lower pH. There is more acidic than cow's milk. You will need to reduce the amount of rennet in order to coagulate the milk effectively by 15 to 25%. For instance, if a recipe calls for 3/4 teaspoon, which is 3.75 ml, use slightly more than half a teaspoon, which is 2.5 ml. Conversely, use 15 to 25% more rennet in a recipe calling for goat's milk if you want to substitute it for cow's milk. There you go. That's the answer. I knew I had it in there somewhere, but I had to check the book. Anyway, hopefully that's answered your question, Mary Ann. My goodness, we've got lots of questions now. Brendan says, mine blew up in the first few days. Yeah, it is amazing to watch. Gavin, watch out for the glove snap. No, it's not a full physical. It's just a blood examination. I've already had my physical. I'm in pretty good health, apparently. Blood pressure stable at a level that's acceptable, and I still have to lose a few kilos, unfortunately. But I'm doing my best to do that. Not staying off the cheese, but exercising regularly every day. Shaunsey says, hi Gavin, I'm making some natural rind cheese, tome and manchego, and a ton of bluish mould was on the top of my 4 wheels and on some of the wheels. I just wiped it off. That's correct. And some of the other I wiped and rubbed with oil. Any opinion, pros and cons on either style? Suggestions, I have them sitting in their own container in my converter fridge. I would, yeah, for manchego, yeah, just wipe it with the brine and then oil it. Manchego does need to be oiled because it ages for a long time. Tome, if the blue mold keeps coming back, use a little bit of vinegar in your brine wash, and that'll help kill off any of the external mold. Josh has said, what is the cheese you would most like to make or get the opportunity to taste? Well, actually, having come from the Mould Cheese Festival a couple of weekends back, Josh, what I want to make is another Parmesan. Well, I'm going to try this afternoon and fit that in on my day off here. But I want to make a tome, and it seems like a fairly basic sort of cheese. I think it's in the Alpine style. Not sure. Have to look up the recipe. I've never made one before, but there were so many examples of tome, and they did taste lovely. So that's the next cheese I would like to get the opportunity to make. And of course, brie. I want to perfect brie. I don't have any success so far in the large form size brie or half brie wheel. So I want to give that a go. Okay. The Rabbit Slayer says, we need an interactive page where you followers can upload cheesy creations. I think that would be fun. Actually, if a lot of people have been doing that, Rabbit Slayer. If you go, which way? That way. Sit down there in the facebook.com/littlegreencheese is a great place. And lots of people have been sharing photos of their cheesy creations. And then what I do is I share that so you can see it on the main feed, and obviously credit the creator of that cheese. So if you want to share any of your cheesy creations, pop over to Facebook, look up the page Little Green Cheese, and yeah, you won't have any problems at all. That'd be fantastic. So we've got a question from Pedro. Pedro says, do I need to worry about humidity levels in my cheese cave if I vacuum seal my cheese, or can I just worry about the temperature? Does cheese age differently, vacuum sealed versus waxing? Very good question. No, you don't have to worry about the humidity levels because most vacuum sealing is not it's not a breathable plastic, so you don't have to worry about it. Humidity's locked in. It's not going to lose any more moisture. As long as you've air dried the cheese properly, you shouldn't get any whey build up in the vac pack. Just worry about the temperature. Make sure that's spot on. If it's too high, you'll get too much acid development, too much bacteria still churning through the lactose. Does it age differently? Not really. I've done 2 cheeses out of the same batch. I vac packed one and I waxed the other. The only real difference is the waxed one depends on how long you age it, tends to get a little bit of white mold underneath, just a little surface mold underneath the wax layer. You can stop that by there's a PVA product that you can paint on, but I don't like putting plastic, that sort of PVA, non-food grade. Well, it is food grade, so they say. But yeah, look, I kind of avoid those sorts of coatings. Mick says, do you sell cheese brushes for salt coating? No, the only cheese brush we have is the little wax one, and you may already have that one, Mick, in one of the orders that we shot through to you. I don't have one of those big bristled salt. I just tend to apply the salt with my hands. As long as they're nice and clean, you shouldn't have too many problems. Okay, where are we up to? Felipe says, does the cheese develop better if it's not waxed? I made a homemade gouda in wax for 2 months. Seems to have developed better in the 3 days I took it out of the wax. Look, natural rinds are always fantastic. If you can maintain the humidity and the right temperature, you'll get a fantastic natural rind. As long as you're washing, well, depends on the cheese. As long as you're brushing, if it's fairly dry, brushing off the mold, you'll get a lovely, nice rind, which actually adds to the flavour of the cheese. Lance is on. He hasn't been on for, God, 9 weeks. That's correct. There was a bit of confusion. Lance 525 was always going the wrong day. backwards instead of forwards. But glad to see you here. Brendan, when I make a brine, a fine white substance settles at the bottom of the solution. It's obviously salt. Has too much salt been added? I put in 225 grams per litre of water. I also add vinegar and calcium chloride. Yeah, it is. It becomes oversaturated. Not all the salt dissolves. When you get between 18 and 26%, I think 26% saturation is the highest salt saturation you can get to. Sounds about right. I add 450 per 2 litre, so that's correct, to get 18%. So, Brendan, yeah, it's just a bit of salt coming out. Got to remember that the cheese is absorbing the salt all the time while it's brining, so that salt will soon disappear in the next batch if you keep it anyway, so no big deal. Snezan says hello. Hello, Snezan. No problems, Marianne. And Kep, what is the conversion between rennet tablets to liquid per teaspoon? Kep, it all depends on the IMCU of the tablet. There is no standard conversion. For some tablets there may be, but certainly not some of the tablets that I stock. So like one of the main ones that we sell is from A's 50, and that has an IMCU of 2,200 and something per tablet, which is massive. So the whole tablet can coagulate 50 litres of milk. Now, it looks the same size as a teaspoon, so it would certainly over-rennet your milk. So a quarter of that tablet would coagulate 12.5 12.5 litres of milk. So that would work fine. So you've got to figure it out based on the IMCU of the product you're using. Always follow the label if it's got a label and tells you how much to add per 10 litres of milk. That's usually the kind of standard. I know that the IMCU 200 that I use varies between, it's usually about, what's just over a quarter. So that's 5/8 of a teaspoon, which is about 2.5, a little bit less than 2.5 mil for 10 litres. And the IMCU 280 rennet that I have as well, you do use even a little bit less. I think it's just 2 mils for 10 litres. But anyway, you got to check the label, because the IMCU strengths are a standard, and they will help you figure out how much to add. Anyway, let's get on the questions. We have got North Screen Productions. Hi, Gavin. I would love to make a strong tasting and a little runny camembert. All the camemberts they sell in stores are mild tasting, which is a shame. How do you get it to taste stronger? Well, I've had really good experience on that. I've had some awfully strong camemberts. And what I've done is basically ripened them at too high a temperature. So normally camemberts ripen at about 7 degrees Celsius. And I ripened it at 13 by mistake, first time ever. And then aged it for a week longer than 4 weeks. And you will have a rather runny but very, very strong tasting camembert. So even mistakes turn out well. All right, so got hundreds of more questions, which is fantastic. Keep them coming. Let's have a look. Snozan says, hello, I'm currently making Cantal and Forme d'Ambert using your advices, and things are going great. Greetings from Belgrade. Greetings back to you. Mick says, what moulds do you use on your large bries, and do you have any? Unfortunately, Mad Millie discontinued the line, Mick, of brie moulds, and I can see why, because they're a pain in the bottom to use. So I would just use the if you want a larger size brie, not the petite brie using the camembert moulds, use the 165 mil mould, which is 6 inches across. And you shouldn't have too many issues. You should be able to flip it all right. And you'll get a decent cheese if you use between 8 and 10 litres of milk. It'll be fairly thick. It should go down to the right size anyway. I would err towards the size of 8 litres of milk. Okay. Shaunsey says, so the natural rind cheeses, do you always wash with brine? I did that with my other manchego now, and there's no more mould growing for natural rind. Do you want to allow the mould to grow or not? No, you don't. You don't really want the mould to be there. You're trying to get it, wipe it off with the brine solution or by brushing. The older it gets, the harder the rind gets, so you probably don't need to wash it much more after about 2-3 months. But certainly brush it with a stiff brush, a soft brush, and you'll have no issues. It'll just come straight off, and it won't wreck your rind. Adam says, what is the difference between different kinds of blue cheese? Aren't they all made using the same principle? Sometimes. It depends on the milk, the fat content of the milk. There are different strains of Penicillium roque 40. We actually have 2 in our shop. We have a mild one and a strong one. But I know there's up to, I think there's about 4 or 5 different strains of Penicillium roque 40, depending on the type of cheese you want to make. I tend to use the strong one if I want a really sharp blue cheese. If I want a softer, milder blue cheese that's creamy like Stilton, I'll use the mild variety of Penicillium roque 40. So hopefully that answers your question. NKY Homesteading. I had trouble with Havarti using a maturation box. It had lots of bee linens, no problem since I started waxing at 2 weeks. Yeah, I had the same sort of issue. For some reason, Havarti seems to be a magnet for bee linens, even though I'd never used it before in my cheese cave. So I did end up vac-packing mine as well because I started to see some mold growth that I didn't want. Thanks, Kim, for popping up the Facebook link there. Lancer, I've decided just to go for it. I'm starting a Bel Paese as soon as my plastic mold comes in. I have access to a non-homogenized, slow pasteurized milk from a local farm. What to look out for? It'll be perfect milk. There'll be no problems. You shouldn't have any issues with coagulation. And because it's been slow pasteurized or low heat, long hold, it's another term is called thermalized. All the good bacteria should still be present. So you should get a very good tasting cheese. So I don't think there's anything to look out for. You seem to have all the right ingredients. Cindy says she finally got on too. Well done, Cindy. Can you explain the MO30 and what they do for cheese? Yes. All right, Cindy, just pop over to... I did a starter culture video on the weekend. So, Kim, if you can pop in the link to the starter cultures for cheese making, and that'll explain everything for you. Thanks for doing the live chats. No problems at all. Claudio. Hello, I'm from Italy. Really like what you do, and I have to ask if the kit for cheese is shipped here too. Yes, I can ship cheese kits to Italy. No problems at all. The cost may be a little bit high. Shipping from Australia to anywhere outside Australia is unfortunately not cheap, but we do use the cheapest form, and that's via Australia Post, and it usually gets there fairly quick. We use standard shipping, which I don't think takes more than 10 days anywhere in the world, which is fairly good, and we ship within 2 business days. So check it out. Kim can put a link to the kits if she's in there somewhere. Thanks, Kim. Random name. Hi, Gavin. I live in Saudi Arabia, and we don't have access to cheese rennet cultures here due to alcohol being illegal. Anything from the word fermentation is hard to get. Okay. Is there any alternative to rennet / culture? Yeah, look, back in the day, they used to use a calf stomach, the 4th stomach of a calf. It's called the rennet bag. Use that if you can get your hands on a slaughtered calf. And as for culture, if you use raw milk, then you don't particularly have to add starter culture. It'll acidify by itself. and you should get some amazing flavors. So yeah, random name. You've got all the things at hand. You've just got to go and source them now. Felipe, thanks, Gavin. The job you do here on YouTube is terrific. Thanks, mate. Appreciate it. Mick says, oh, I've missed it. I scrolled up too far. So what do you think your problems with making large bries? Mick, I think they were too thin. I used, the mold was too wide. It was too thin. It was only about 1.5 centimeters, and when I flipped it, it broke in half. That was my issue. So I could use the same mold again. I would just have to increase the amount of milk that I use. So that was my main issue. Mold growth was no problems. Didn't have any issues with that. And trying to find a ripening box that was big enough for a 10 centimeter mold. That was half the issue as well. Actually, not 10 centimeters, 20 centimeters. So it's massive. Okay. What have we got? Jai says, "Hey Gavin, do you know where I can buy fresh, pure cow's milk straight from the cow, or pure fresh cream straight from fresh cow's milk from a dairy? I live out in Pakenham, which is the other side of Melbourne from us where we live." No, very difficult to tell you that because unfortunately it's illegal to buy from the farm gate raw milk. So you're going to have to find through your network of friends whether there are any local dairies nearby. Approach the dairy farmer and ask. They do sell what's known as pet milk, which can be fed to pets. So use at your own discretion. So yeah, you are going to have to find a local dairy farmer and ask them. Marianne says, "What hard cheese molds would you suggest to purchase first?" Basically I use one, and it serves me very well. As long as you can get a mold that's about 6 inches across, and I'm not sure how high it is. Kim can put a link to our 165 millimeter mold in the chat down there below, Marianne. And I'm not saying buy it, but get a feel for the size of it, and you can convert that into inches or whatever you want to do there, and figure out what size you will need. And usually I use that for batches of milk between 8 and 10 litres. Even up to 12, I've made 12-litre batches using that mould, and the cheeses come out perfectly shaped. No issues at all. Coleman says, "Hi Gavin, hope all is well." Yes, it is. Thank you, Coleman. I recently inherited a cheese press, but it only has 10, 20, and 30 markings on it anyway. Can I know if this is pounds or kilos? Depends on where you bought it, I suppose. If it's from North America, from America, United States, and it's probably in pounds. If it's from any other country, then it's probably metric. You're going to have to figure out where it was manufactured. But what you can do, and this is something I have tried before, I've got a kitchen scale and popped it underneath the press, and this is how I measured the pressure of the spring that I use, and screw it down to whatever the marking is. And hopefully it should read fairly close to what the marking is in either kilograms or pounds. So just a kitchen scale, pop it under the press, apply the pressure. There you go. Simple as that. Not very technical, but it kind of works. Where are we? Okay. Laura, does cheese give you nightmares? No, it doesn't. Pizzas give me nightmares. I have pizza dreams. They're really weird. Cheese doesn't. Cheese makes me happy. North Screen Productions, when do you ship cheese kits to Norway? If so, are the recipes in Celsius and measurements in litres? Don't have cups and Fahrenheit. Yes, we do ship to Norway. Just make sure you don't order tons and tons of stuff because the shipping is quite prohibitive. But saying that, we get many international orders every week, so we do. And yes, the recipes in the kit are in Celsius and in milliliters and liters and all that sort of stuff. So that's cool. I cannot pronounce that because it's in Cyrillic writing, but thank you for coming along. Hey, Gavin, you tried to make cheese with a plant enzyme. No, I haven't. But I do know that you can use cardoon thistle. I'll just soak that in water, and that works well. And fig sap is another way that the Romans, back in their day, used to make it was a coagulant for cheese as well. But normally they just used animal rennet. But yeah, fig sap actually works as well. There's a few others. There's a Indian rennet, which is a form of plant as well that seems to coagulate as well. I can't remember the botanical name, but and I did see that you're a patron now, so thank you very much. Pedro says, I can't seem to find much info about setting up fridges for cheese caves. Do I have to worry about what type of fridge? Will any college dorm type of fridge work? Yes, Pedro. Any fridge that you can attach a external thermostat to, you will have no issues whatsoever. Because it doesn't matter what the temperature is set inside. You've got an external probe that senses when the fridge gets to a certain temperature. Then it turns on and cools it down a little bit before it gets too hot inside. Mine's set between 11 and 13 Celsius. Even though I have it set at 13 on the dial, it seems to go down to 11 occasionally and comes back up. That 2 degrees drift is no problem. But any small bar fridge or any large kitchen fridge will do too if you use an external thermostat. Okay. Earl says, hi from Canada. What cheeses can I make with water buffalo? You're blessed. Basically, you can make the best mozzarella with buffalo milk. You can also make many other cheeses as well. Remember, it's got a very high fat content, so it will be more on the creamy side and taste amazing. So yeah, the mozzarella using the traditional style is one of the best cheeses you can make with buffalo milk. Okay. Where are we? Kim, thanks for putting that link up. Shaunsey says, last question from me. I've made charus, I think that's what it's 2 times. And after a week to grow the white mold, I wrap it and put it in the fridge. But after a week, I open the paper and the surface is wet and I need to dry it off with paper towel. Do you know what's happening? Thanks so much. Yeah, I think what may happen or have happened is that you probably didn't drain it in the molds long enough. It's the figure they give in some of the recipes is arbitrary. I do it until I can actually remove the cheese from the little hoop and it stays and doesn't bulge at the sides. If it's still bulging at the sides, you've got too much whey in there, let it drain some more. But I have had that experience as well. Okay, Laura, cheddar cheese makes me sweat. Do you get cheese sweats as well? No, I'm sorry, Laura, I don't get cheese sweats. My enzymes in my stomach must be processing the little lactose, no problems at all. Sorry that you get that. Hopefully not for other cheeses, though. Sunny says, hi from Washington, D.C. What's your favourite method of keeping cheese fresh in your fridge? Basically, if it's a fresh cheese, yes. Airtight container. That's all I use. Make sure that no moulds can get in there. They last about 2 weeks, which is great. But make sure they're kept at 4 degrees Celsius so they don't get infected by any other bad bacteria that may infect your cheese. And don't let it linger past 2 weeks, really, because it's not safe to do so. Okay, Kim's got the link mold. Fantastic, thank you. Joy says she uses a 6.5-inch mold across the inside bottom for a 4-gallon batch, which is, yeah, it's about 16 litres, which is very similar to the 165 mold. Excellent. So it looks like I can go up to a higher amount using that mold. So about 16 litres, that'll be cool. Mick's off to make his brie. Thanks for his advice. See you later, Mick. I'm how far behind him? Oh, no, I'm nearly up to there. Brendan says there's a lot of conflicting information which about what the difference between brie and camembert are. What's my take? Well, if we're looking at AOC versions of camembert and brie, camembert is made with raw milk, and it has a much smaller form, and it's only about 10 centimeters across, which is, what's that, 4 inches. Brie, on the other hand, AOC brie is large form, about that, and it comes in wedges when you buy it from the shop. And they use raw and pasteurized milk. They're allowed to in the AOC designation. They're the two main differences. I think there may be a slight temperature variation. And obviously there's the terroir variation, the environmental variations. One's made in Normandy and one's made in, I think it's in the Meuse area in France. Don't quote me on that. But they're the only differences that I know of, Brendan. Thanks for the question. YouTube is having connectivity problems at the moment all over Japan, Europe, and East Coast. Just FYI. Thanks. Well, it seems to be getting through from the feedback I'm getting from my live page. So from Australia to the US or wherever the server is, seems to be going okay. And hopefully won't have any issues with the archive version as well. Claudio says, in your books, you explain how to make cheese from goat's milk. I'm interested about cheese like Parmesan with a long seasoning. Do you explain how to make them? I do explain how to make Parmesan, but not with goat's milk, with cow's milk. Traditionally, Parmesan or Parmigiano Reggiano is made with cow's milk, skimmed cow's milk, or low fat. It's not fully skimmed, about 2% fat, and that seems to be what it is. I don't explain how to make goat's milk, but however, in volume 2 of Keep Calm and Make Cheese, which I've still only written one chapter, we'll have explanation on how to use goat's milk and the variations and all that, because I've started making goat's milk cheeses since I wrote the first book. Hope that helps. Zelzior. Hello, Gavin. Thanks for the inspiration you give in your tutorial videos. No problems at all. Happy to help. Lots of chitty chat between Kim and all the curd nerds. It's great. Last question from the far north. Are your kits sort of just add milk? Yes. So it'll have the mould, the thermometer, the cheesecloth, the cultures, the rennet, the calcium chloride. All you have to do is go grab the best milk you can find, follow the recipes, and go for it. You will have some success, I believe. Okay, where are we? Sonny Simmons. Who on earth has cheese in their fridge longer than 2 weeks? Thanks for your inspiration. Well, if you're going to make a hard cheese, you really can't go past it, because the the fats haven't been broken down by the enzymes left over by the starter cultures, and you won't have a flavoursome cheese. But yeah, fresh cheeses. Yeah, who leaves them in the fridge longer than 2 weeks? Correct, because they're all gone. Asman, nice to see you. Hi, Gavin and Kim. Have you tried colouring your own wax? And do you reuse your old wax? Yes, I do. I keep the wax, strain it, and basically, before I use it again, I bring it up to about 75 degrees Celsius. That'll kill any pathogens. Rarely go over 90. You don't want to wax too hot. You don't want it smoking, because as soon as it hits the cheese, it does kill any surface molds and bacteria, which is one of the beauties of actually using wax to mature your cheese. Lancer says, thank you, Gavin and Kim. So glad I finally got here. Looking forward to starting my bel paese. I'll keep you posted. G'day. Well, g'day to you. And hopefully your bel paese works out fine. NKY, my derby doesn't seem to knit well in the mould. Thanks to backpacking, it'll eventually hold together. aging. Any idea when it went wrong during the 2-day drying process? Yeah, it's a Derby is a bit of a funny one. I found that the temperature during pressing had to be at least about 21 degrees, because if it got cold, 21 degrees Celsius, if it got cold, the curd cubes wouldn't knit together. So I actually had to apply as much pressure as I possibly could to get that cheese to knit together, and it seemed to work out okay in the end. But luckily, you've got it vac packed, and yeah, that'll actually hold it together as long as there's no CO2 production within the cheese. And the bag tends to puff up a little bit, but if it does that, just re-vac pack it again, no problems at all. Claudio says, Kim, can I download the registration of this live at the end? Registration of what? Of the book or something? I'm not sure, Claudio, what you're after there. But yeah, just you should be able to go to the website, littlegreenworkshops.com.au, and download anything you need to there. Good night, or as the Aussies say in the Aussie case, good day. No, it's not good day. That's English. It's g'day. Okay, Kep, how important is temperature when pressing cheese for a long period of time? Look, it's fairly important as long as your room doesn't go down below about 16 degrees Celsius. The cheese has a hard time knitting together. That's all. When it's warmer, it knits together very well, as in like it's just come out of the pot. And during summer, I have no issues. During the winter, sometimes, if I'm making a cheddary type cheese, then the bigger size cubes that when you mill it together and then press it together, sometimes have an issue trying to stick together. So that's why room temperature, about 21 degrees, is kind of ideal. So, yeah, it does make a little bit of a difference. It can't be freezing cold. The curds they just don't knit together properly. North Screen Productions, good night. Yes, we already did that one. Sorry about that. Earl, how can I support you and Kim's work? Earl, you can go to Patreon. I think Kim's already put that little link there for you. Or you could do a super chat, and super chat takes a little time to set up, but not too much. There's a little dollar sign down the bottom of the chat there, and you can make a donation, and the proceeds go to us as well. But Patreon's probably the preferred method. It's a monthly pledge. You can cancel it any time you like, if you so desire. Okay, Brendan says, I also had to apply an incredible amount of pressure for my Sage Derby to knit. Yeah, it was one of those weird sorts of cheeses. I think it was because I used dried sage in it, and that stops the curds touching each other because there's all these bits of sage there. So to get it to knit together, you got to apply a lot. I think it was more than 22 kilos that I normally use, which is 50 pounds. I really had to give it to the press without breaking it, of course. So, yeah, so that's all good. All right, so System 32's got a question I've missed there. Where are I? Is it possible to add some culture to quick mozzarella to give it a different taste? I actually do add lipase, which is an enzyme, a pregastric enzyme from carbs. It does actually give it a different taste. And you'll notice the difference between day one or day zero and then day one of leaving your mozzarella. The flavor profile increases dramatically. It really does give it a good flavor boost. So pick up some lipase. You can buy calf and kid lipase. Kid lipase from goats is a lot sharper, whereas cow's lipase is less sharper but more piquant. So yeah, nice. So just add that in there. Rabbit Slayer says, I did a super chat in under 20 seconds. Well done. Thank you very much. And I remember back when you did that. But yeah, that is a good comment. It doesn't take that long. Not that I want everybody to do a super chat. It's up to you guys, really. Anyway, we're up to the 50-minute mark, and the questions have kind of slowed down. So what we can do is, if anybody's got any more questions, get them out now, and I'll answer them in the next few minutes. Claudiu says, can I season cheese at home? If yes, how? As in add herbs and spices and stuff like that to the cheese. Well, I can certainly recommend that. So what I do add chilies fairly often. So I make things like Monterey Jack, and any sort of chili cheese you want to make. You can put chilies in cheddar as well. What I do is I actually use dried chilies, and what I do there is I rehydrate them. I boil them for about 15 minutes in a cup of water, just in a very small saucepan. And basically what I do then is, after the 15 minutes, I strain them off. So I've got the flakes of chili and the seeds and what have you. And then I've got the water. The water I add straight to the milk at the start of the cheese making process, and then the chilies I mill in with the curds when I'm adding the salt. That is the best time to season your cheeses. If you're going to add flavors to them, do it during the milling process. I've done the same thing with sage. I've done the same thing. I think I've used smoky paprika, which I haven't shown anybody. But yeah, there's some amazing flavors. You can also get smoky paprika, which is it's just crushed smoked capsicums, or peppers, and you can actually make a paste with some olive oil and smear that all over the outside of the cheese, and that tends to impart a bit of flavor into the rind, which is very, very nice. So you can try that as well. Anyway, Kim says, my chooks are complaining. Yes, because they haven't been fed yet. But I'll do that in a minute. Jeff says, have you ever smoked any of your cheeses you make? I have never cold smoked. I want to, as it heats up here in Australia. We'll do some of that. But I have added liquid smoke to a gouda, and that has worked very well. I probably needed to add a little bit more liquid smoke to get a stronger flavour, but certainly the smell was there, and there was a slight flavour on the tongue, which was good. Okay. Kep, for your information, Auto Stirrer Mark II has been finished. I'll use it today. Fantastic. Yeah, send through some pictures, Kep. That'll be great. Post them up to Little Green Cheese, the Facebook page, down there, that one, and I can share that with all and sundry, and put a little description of how you made it. Be great. With flavors, can you add pickled onion? I have made a Cotswold, what's known as a Cotswold cheese, or a what's it called? Ploughman's cheese, something like that. And I've added dried onion flakes, and I've also added dried chives. Very, very nice flavour. So go and check out Cotswold. Kim can pop the link up there, Asman, for you if you want to have a look. It's also in my cheese making book, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, the recipe. North Screen Production, sorry, one last question. I'm deciding between cheese kits on your webpage. Is Camembert too hard for a beginner, or relatively easy? Maybe other suggestions for a beginner other than mozzarella need to taste. Look, I would suggest maybe get the fresh cheese kit at the back, which is, oh, there it is. Fresh cheese kit. You can make halloumi, cottage cheese, feta, can't remember some other ones there. Quark, really basic cheeses, very flavoursome. You can give it a go. That's one. Or the hard cheese kit. Camembert is really an intermediate cheese, but I've known quite a few people to make that straight off the bat. As long as they follow the instructions, it's not that hard. You just got to make sure that if you do any variations, then you may come unstuck. Whereas hard cheese kit, or the fresh cheese kit there behind me, is more forgiving. You'll get a better result if you have a variation, make a mistake or something like that. Joy said, I really enjoyed the Mould Festival video. All those kinds of cheeses, very interesting, so much variation. Thanks for doing that. Um, Look, Joy, I really appreciate it. Me and Kim had a great time. Oh, and another super chat. Thanks, NKY. Appreciate the $10 you've thrown my way. Every little bit goes to keep the show going, as well as your questions as well. MJ, I'd like to see a video of your chooks. I think there is a video. I've got another channel called The Greening of Gavin, which there's a link off the channel page. And yeah, there's my chooks feature heavily. I featured on a few of the TV channels here in Australia when I was doing all my greening stuff. Not that I've stopped it, but I just don't show people what I do anymore because I've done it all. But yeah, you can check out the chooks there. Brandon, have you ever made hard cheese go flat? Some flattening is probably unavoidable. Has this happened to you? Only when I've left too much whey in it or I didn't make the curds consistently even, Brendan. They've got to be but roughly the same size. If you've got some little ones and then some big ones, the big ones hold too much whey and they tend to make the cheese go flat if you even after you've pressed it, which is a bit weird. Anyway, Kim, thanks for the Cotswold. Feta is a great first cheese to make. It is. It's very good. Mozzarella is not that easy. No, it's not. It's probably more of an intermediate cheese as well. So I found. John, through Camembert, I thought Camembert will be hard, and it actually really isn't that hard, unless you make a mistake and you're not au fait with cheese making processes. 30-minute mozzarella is quite easy if you can get it right. Kep, see you later, mate. And MJ, I'll look for the other channel. No problems at all. All right, it's coming up to 56 minutes, and we're going to call it a day, I think. Like I've mentioned a few times, Patreon is where you can support the channel. That's fantastic. You can also support the channel via Super Chat, as I said. But don't forget that you can purchase the book, Keep Calm and Make Cheese, over at littlegreenworkshops.com.au, where you can pick up all the kits. You've seen links and stuff like that. And also all my cheese recipes, or most of them anyway, and lots of podcasts are over at littlegreencheese.com. The link is there below in the thing and in the description. Okay. Thanks, everybody, for watching, and we will see you next time.